Being child-free saved my life. Hey everyone, welcome back to Lives on Reddit. Don't forget to subscribe to be a for lifer. I'm a 30-year-old female and recently got a new GP. She sent me some tests and referred me to a specialist to investigate long-term gyno issues that had been dismissed by other doctors for years. For example, it wasn't uncommon for me to have my period for 3 weeks. The specialist I was referred to explained that I definitely had a 13-centimeter cyst on one ovary, but also very likely had severe endometriosis based on all my other symptoms, but that it is hard to diagnose without actually going in and taking a look. Considering I had to have surgery to remove the cyst anyway, I signed a consent form that said if she found the suspected endometriosis, she could also remove all of that while she was in there. The specialist asked me what my fertility plans were while we discussed the risk of the proposed surgery. I said I didn't want kids, and she seemed relieved. She explained to me that she expected to find that the endo was all over my reproductive organs, and that trying to save the fragile fallopian tubes while cutting tissue off the outside of them was very difficult and would make for a longer and more difficult surgery. I said, well, if that's easier, just take the tubes entirely. It's not like I need them, and I certainly wouldn't miss being on birth control. So last week, I had a left oophorectomy and bilateral salpingectomy, and 3.5 hours of endometriosis removal. It was a huge surgery. I'm still sore, but on the mend. Here's where it saved my life. I just had my follow-up appointment with the specialist, and the lab discovered during the routine pathology report on the excised tissue that there was a tiny, very rare, very aggressive type of tumor growing in my right fallopian tube that we had no idea about. If I had wanted kids and I had asked the specialist to save my tubes, that tumor would still be in me. Ovarian cancers are very scary because there are often no symptoms until it has spread. Got told to not buy any lottery tickets because I've used up all my luck. Too long didn't read, removed my tubes, found out one had a tumor growing in it that would have been deadly. Edit to add. Whoa. I went to sleep and this has gone kinda crazy. I'll reply to everyone, thanks for the awards. Forgot to say before, the specialist did say, do you need to discuss this with your husband before signing these consent forms? I don't want to be the cause of a divorce. And I simply said, if we divorce, it won't be because of you. He's perfectly capable of that all by himself. She laughed and re-signed the forms. I had a similar thing happen to me. They found a tumor that was basically splitting my uterus in half. I was in constant pain until they did the surgery. Ended up being 2 surgeries because the first one was to look for endometriosis. Had a hysterectomy at 31, and I'm so happy to be pain-free. Also, not bleeding during my menstrual cycle is amazing. I went from having periods every week to never. It's an incredible improvement to my quality of life. Not having to worry about birth control, honestly, is such a relief. My husband and I had already decided to not have children due to other issues, so I was fine with being uterus-free. It's such a relief knowing that there can't be any accidents, and so glad you're feeling better too. Can't wait to get better and move on with my life. As someone who sees the damage of that kind of cancer can cause, high-grade serous carcinoma, you're so incredibly lucky, because there usually aren't symptoms until it progresses to stage 3 or 4. The survival prognosis after finding it is usually months. This is definitely a blessing for you. Enjoy your child-free life and live it up. Below is the really explicit descriptions of cancer symptoms. Please read at your own risk. My grandmother had uterine cancer. Let me tell you, it's a horrible way to go. We didn't realize it until she started developing other symptoms, the main of which was massive bloating. She looked like she was pregnant with twins and 10 months in. By then, she needed emergency surgery when the doctor cut open. He realized that the cancer has spread everywhere, adhesions on literally all of her organs, up to her lungs, and she had weeks to live. They gave her 3 weeks, but she lasted 6 months. I wish she had passed away peacefully in those 3 weeks because those last months were absolute HE double hockey sticks on earth for her. She was a fiercely independent woman who lost all of her autonomy during those final months. She was in constant pain, unable to move, unable to shower, clean herself, do her own things, eat, breathe, and so on. Liquid swelled her abdomen 3 more times and she had to get it drained every few weeks or else it would smother her. Her belly grew and grew until we had to get a pregnancy belt to contain it, or else everything would spill out. She began losing her sanity in the final month and a half. I think the mix between pain and metastasis drove her to have dementia-like symptoms. She would talk for hours on end about things unrelated to reality and couldn't keep a coherent train of thought. You could tell there was part of her that was semi-conscious until she closed her eyes and didn't talk again. She spent about a week being unconscious with black ooze coming out everywhere, and then she died. It was horrible. I don't wish that kind of death on anyone. Count yourself so lucky, original poster. Uterine cancer is absolutely no joke. I think it's the literal worst form of cancer that can eat away at you. Please count your lucky stars and thank your GP thoroughly. The sort of heck he saved you from is something else. Bilateral staphyloidectomies save lives because most ovarian cancers start in the fallopian tubes. You are an example of that, and your doctor is priceless. Can you eventually, when you feel better, add her to the Childfree Doctors Wiki? I've heard of too many doctors who wouldn't dream of removing your fallopian tubes. Why? What if you wanted a baby someday? This one just took them out with no fuss. Great doctor. The app keeps crashing on my phone when I try to load the doctors list to add it, so when I can get off the couch to my computer, I'll add her onto the list for sure. I'm so happy you were finally listened to. I've been having some issues after my period that my doctor dismissed as being normal when I called him last month. And obviously I believed him as that's his job to look after my health. But now the same thing happened and I know I want this properly investigated. So I'm also going to a different doctor on Friday and I'm hoping I'll find someone who will listen. I also would like to send a huge frick you to all the doctors who act this way. Oh man, I had honestly given up on finding a doctor who would listen. We moved houses and my new neighbor was raving about her GP, so I thought I'd give it a shot. I had one doctor flat out tell me after I'd explained what I was there to see him about that he doesn't deal with women's issues because women don't understand themselves, so how's he supposed to? I just picked up my bag and left. I'm so glad the specialist saved your life. Ovarian cancer starts in the fallopian tubes, which is why I got my ovaries and fallopian tubes removed, in addition to my breasts, cervix, and uterus. 6 years after finding out that I have the BRCA1 genetic mutation that can cause breast and ovarian cancer. 7 women on my mom's side, including her 3 times, have had breast cancer. 4 have died, 1 of my mom's sisters and all 3 of my grandfather's sisters. No one I know has gotten ovarian cancer, but it could happen at any time, and continuing with surveillance didn't sit right with me. I had my cervix and uterus removed for 2 reasons. I have post-traumatic stress disorder, and the repeated cervical exams were extremely traumatic for me. I don't want to be a surrogate. I never wanted kids, and at almost 30, I had the surgeries at 27. I absolutely do not want kids. Ever. Also, I have several genetic diseases or health conditions, and bipolar disorder, and I'm autistic. All good reasons by themselves to not have kids. I don't have any family history at all, so it's extra surprising. Definitely get it all out if you can. Sounds like nothing but drama if you keep it. Something similar happened to me. I had stage 4 endo and adeno, but it took years for any doctor to take my symptoms and concerns seriously enough to bother doing anything about it. When I finally did find an excision specialist capable and willing to get in there and do something, he said it was the worst he'd ever seen. Endo had been left so long to grow that it had completely infested all of my abdominal organs, to the point that it was choking the life out of my intestines and causing organ failure. Due to lack of blood flow, I wasn't kidding about it choking the life out of everything. If I hadn't found that doctor when I did, I likely would have died. All because every other doctor I'd seen insisted that I was being dramatic and that endo goes away once you have a baby anyway. Those freaking doctors are going to get someone killed one of these days. Yep, mine were absolutely everywhere. Specialists had similar comments to yours. Glad it's all done for now, and fingers crossed for slow regrowth.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Don't leave. Subscribe. Yeah.